Deep thoughts.
Welcome everybody to Deep Thoughts. Today we're talking about some rumors that have come out about 8th edition rules, and we'll add fuel to the fire and just discuss some of these because in my opinion these are likely to come up. Just a disclaimer, of course, these are my thoughts and not the thoughts of anybody else's, including those of other members of CanHammer. So I woke up this morning on Instagram and there is a picture going around of a list of rules changes that has appeared somehow on the internet, and apparently from a credible source, whatever. But the changes to the rules do appear reasonable and in vein with what they've already told us, i.e. a lot of things are becoming more like AOS. So I thought we'd entertain ourselves this morning and just talk a little bit about these and what I think about them. So we already know, for example, that something like Battle Shock is going to be a thing as opposed to the morale system as it is now. I like Battle Shock. I think it's another strategy that can be used for or against your army. And I think morale and leadership does very little in the game these days. So I like some change to that system. The other thing that came up was that people who charge will get first strike in combat. I also like that. I think it gives you some advantage to charging other than adding an attack, and I like the sound of that, and I like how that works in AOS. What happens to initiative and unwieldy weapons, specialist weapons, things like that, we'll see. Maybe it all just gets equalized like in AOS. Every weapon goes at the same time and it doesn't matter, which might work. And then the question is whether or not your unit will have to pay for these upgrades like they do now, or whether they don't need to pay like in AOS. So we'll have to see what happens with that, but that sounds interesting. Somebody joined me this morning, Reggie. Say hi, Reggie. You're on Deep Thoughts. What are your deep thoughts, Reggie? Like you want to get out of here. Okay, so this is the list of things that has been going around on the internet getting leaked. So I'm going to look at these. So the first one says codexes are done and will be replaced on launch day with scroll style, war scroll style releases like in AOS. I think most people thought that that was what was going to happen. There's no point doing all this if we're going to stick with the current system of codex after codex and supplement and data slates, and one counts or all of them count, or the one 10 years ago still counts. This is ridiculous. I'm just packing up for a tournament this weekend. I have to take like 3 books with me, which is crazy. So I, for one, welcome that change. I would like a 40K version of General's Handbook, and I would like one book of appropriate kind of data slates or whatever you're going to call it, and that's it. Or even better, like I have for AOS coming up right now, little cards where I can put my data slates on, so I don't even have to carry the book. That's even better. So I think that's a good idea. The second point is gone are templates, weapons, and instead random number of wounds for template weapons like flamers do in Overwatch. Yes, I hate templates. It's inaccurate. It's prone to sort of cheating. The scatter dice is a silly thing. Yeah, it adds a little bit to the sort of immersion and kind of fluffiness of template weapons and flamers, and but it's an unnecessary complexity to the game, and I think like armies like Renegades just takes that to a whole new level. We're just sitting there flipping templates like 50 times a turn. It's really silly. So I'm glad to see templates gone. Third point, vehicle armor is gone. Vehicles will have multiple wounds, and heavy weapons will do multiple wounds. So I knew that was coming. I think vehicles needed something to get back into the game, and either they changed that to toughness, or they changed everybody to more granularity in the wounds and get rid of hull points, just like AOS. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. You're going to see I don't know, I'm spitballing here, but you're gonna see like a Marine or a Guardsman have like 1 wound, and a Marine will have like 2 or 3 wounds. Terminators have like 5 or 6 wounds and better saves, and then you see like a Rhino have like 10 wounds, and a Land Raider have like 20 wounds or something, and an Imperial Knight will have like that many more wounds. And then also you can make the granularity in the save, and whether it takes rend or is immune to rend. So you have lots of ways of making things tougher without having to resort to a completely different system. And then you can also have granularity in your weapons. So right now, if your weapon's not AP2, it's literally the same as every other weapon other than strength. So you could say a bolter has like no rend, and then, or a lascan is no rend, a bolter is -1, and then like a lascan is like -3 or something. Or you can give heavy weapons a special rule that allows them to automatically do X number of wounds to heavy units or to vehicles or whatever. I mean, there's so many ways you could do it that makes it a little bit more granular, and makes vehicles relevant again. So I like that change. Early summer release. I don't know about the release date, whatever. I think there's going to be 3 more books before release, but there might not be, so who knows. There's at least going to be Death Guard, so I think there's going to be 3 more Death Guard, Orcs, and Tyranids. I've said that many times before. I'll say it right here on this video again. Death Guard and Mortarion, Orcs, Tyranids, and then 8th edition. I said it today. Rules will be simplified, but not to the extent of AOS, and there'll be 3 ways to play. Well, there's 50 ways to play right now, just everyone decides to play the same way. You can play however you want, so sure, there may be 3 structured ways to play, and that's fine. If it goes that way, that's great. I'm only going to play the one way, mostly, but that's fine. In terms of going like AOS, yeah, we already know that. It needs to be simplified. Nobody's going to argue that the game is good as it is right now. It will be simplified, hopefully. Hopefully we're going to see rules go into data slates and off of USRs, and so it will be simplified, and I hope to simplify a lot of mechanics. I don't think it's going to be simplified like AOS. It can't be. You can't do that. There's too much in the game, too much complexity, too many models, too many model types. You can't make it as simple as AOS, who has just only now released like a transport. So automatically 40k is going to be way more complicated than AOS, as it should be. There should be one game that's simpler and one game that's more complex. I don't think they have to be the same, but it needs to be simplified, so I'm happy about that. Charging from vehicles is back, not just assault marines. Yeah, I like that change. I think that makes the game more dynamic. I think that makes the game faster, and again, it makes vehicles useful, or more useful. Will it mean people are like, oh, Rhino Rush is coming back, you're going to see armies full of rhinos and assault marines? Well, maybe not, because we don't know what the army composition rules are going to be at this time. So there may be restrictions on doing that, you know, so you can't just assume that that's going to snowball into a whole different way of playing. It might, but it probably will just mean that 1 or 2 units in your army can do that, and that's it. Maybe there's going to be restrictions on the number of vehicles you can take, like, I don't know. So I wouldn't go too crazy about predicting that everybody's going to start playing Rhino Rush with assault marines, and maybe assault marines will suck, you know. But I like making vehicles more relevant and more dynamic, as I've already said, and this is another way of doing that. Yeah, so I like the idea of that, and that's basically those points. So I'm very excited for 40k 8th edition, or the next edition, or the AOS edition of 40k. I think it's going to be great. I look forward to it, and we will definitely be covering the transition here on CanHammer. So thank you very much for joining me for Deep Thoughts this morning. If you have any particular things you would like to think deeply about, please put it below. Thank you for your support at CanHammer, and see you next time.